Youth development in Nigeria faces numerous challenges. Many youths lack access to quality education, healthcare, and recreational facilities. Unemployment and poverty rates remain high, limiting opportunities for growth and success. Despite these challenges, sports offers a pathway for positive development, if you agree with me. We're going to be talking about youth and sport development in Nigeria. And to have this conversation is a football referee and sports journalist by name Kelechi NNAJI. Good evening, Kelechi, and welcome.
Yeah, good evening to you.
Okay, so Nigeria has a very vast potential for sport development. Rather, we have underdeveloped places with dilapidated facilities. So, what specific steps do you believe the government or private sectors should actually introduce in order to revive our sports sectors?
All right. I think I will have to start by mentioning that the sports sector is, highly untapped because, internationally, sports is a sector where Nigerians has actually excelled in the past, even presently. You could go anywhere and call the name Victor Osimhen, and everybody knows who he is.
Absolutely.
You could call the name Toby Amuson, and everybody knows who she is. She's that popular, and that's the what sports does for you. So most times I look at the way the Nigerian youths are whiling away trying to do sports, but then the government is actually not paving the way for them to excel. So I feel like sports is hugely untapped in Nigeria. But how do we get the best out of the Nigerian youths? First of all, it's by making sure that the Nigerian youths get the best education, because that's the biggest problem we have with sports in Nigeria. A lot of people feel like
You
when
don't
you
have to
are
go to
yeah, when
school.
you're doing sports you don't have to go to school. But that's where we're getting it wrong the most. That's our greatest undoing, because most of the times the problem is that like the Bible said, many are called but few are
Few are
chosen.
choosing.
A lot of people will go into it, but at the end of the day, not everyone will make it into the elite stay level of the sports. So those people who fell out of the line, what's next for them? They don't have anything to fall back to.
No
There's
educational
no
background.
educational background, nothing else to fall back to, no business knowledge, nothing. All they knew growing up was, I want to play football. I want to
I
be
mean,
a cricketer.
sometimes it comes as a hobby,
Yeah.
and they feel they should dive into it as a career.
That's actually the problem. The problem is, should it be a hobby? It also has to allow you do other things, because in life you're supposed to incorporate so many
To
things.
strike a balance.
Yes, there has to be a balance. The way you are out here, you're doing your job. You also need to understand what it means to be a family person. You cannot just focus on your career and forget that, okay, you're supposed to come from a family. That's exactly how it is in sports. You want to be a footballer. That doesn't mean you're not supposed to know how to do other things, because football is a very short career.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Football, in fact, let me put it this way. Sports generally is a very short career. On the max, you have a 15-year, 20 years career, and you're done. You do sports in your youth. Once you're no longer a youth, once you've lost your youthfulness, you've lost your ability to do
To do
sports.
certain
So what do
things.
you fall back to at that age? Some people say life really starts at 40. But in sports, at 30, you're retiring. You're old. In sports, when you're 30, they tell you that you're old. So, but, you know, a lot of things need to be put in place.
Okay, let's talk about scouting.
Okay.
How effective are the system when it comes to scouting for the young, talented ones?
Okay, I'll tell you the truth. In Nigeria, it is actually not so effective, but it has been individualized.
What do you mean by individualized?
You know, we can't really boast that we have a government body that takes all the necessary steps to go into the streets and the villages to pick out the talents. Yes, we have the National Sports Commission, the NSC, which was brought back by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Initially, it was inexistent initially, but then it was replaced by the Sports Ministry. But then the Sports Ministry, led by Senator John Owen Eno, was disabled, by the president, and then they returned the NSC, that's the National Sports Commission, now chaired by Malam Shehu Diko and the DG Olopade.
Okay.
You know, and the return of the NSC has promised to rejuvenate sports in Nigeria by taking to the streets, taking to the villages, taking to the local governments to shoot, to fish for talents. But how easy is it? How effective has the talks been? I'll tell you that there's been so much talks, but not so much action. Now, over the years, how do we source out? How do we, fish our talents? Most times, these talents, most people, their talents waste in the streets. We've seen, people who could have been the next JJ Okocha waste in the streets. We've seen the people who could have been the next, Blessing Okabore waste in the streets. So now, I'm all about, if we are pointing fingers, if we are pointing at the problems, can we also point at the solutions? If we want to get back to the days when, we easily get talents every year, we need to go back to school sports.
Okay, so with the current issue of unemployment in Nigeria, with the challenge of high youth unemployment in Nigeria, how can we use the sports sector as a leverage for employment in order to curb the number, the figure of unemployed youth in Nigeria?
All right. I think sports actually offers the opportunity for Nigeria to, hugely help the unemployment situation of the country. Because now sports has the capacity to employ over 1 million Nigerians. I think,
Oh, really?
That's how big it is. Yes, that's how big sports is. When we say sports, most people, the first thing that will come to your mind is football.
Football. I was going to say that.
Football alone. Now let's just dissect it this way. In one football match, you have 11 players playing on the other side, 11 players on the other side. That's 22 already. Then you have 9 players on the bench.
And you have a goalkeeper.
The 9 by 2, that's 18. 18 players. No, the goalkeeper on the bench inclusive in the 9.
Okay.
That's 18. Add the 18 to the 22. That gives you 40. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That gives you 40. Now you already have
40 employed youths
in just one match. And now in the NPFL, we have 20 teams. That the 20 teams, let's say in one match game week, we have 40 players for each game, times it by 20. Maybe I'm not so good with mathematics, but yes, we can do the calculations some other time. But just understand what I'm trying to say. This is just the players. We've not talked about the coaching staff, the medical team, and everything. Every other person.
Exactly. Apart from people that plays in the field.
These are the people who take it to the field to play. Now you begin to look at the track and field events. People who do the races, shot puts, javelin. All manner of sports. Now, the National Sports Festival kicks off tomorrow in Ogun State. And Ogun State, for the first time, will be hosting over 10,000 Nigerians for 2 weeks. Where it gladdens my heart is because after Ogun State, Enugu is next. Is Enugu ready?
How often is this sports festival?
It's a yearly festival.
Okay.
It's a yearly festival. Enugu will be hosting next year. Ogun State hosts this year. It kicks off tomorrow. So Ogun State, they've sounded very, very confident that they are capable of hosting Nigerians for 2 good weeks. And when I say 10,000, I think I'm actually, undermining the number of athletes who attend the events. We're talking about athletes. We've not talked about the media houses.
Even the spectators.
The spectators, and how much money it will generate for the states. And also, it helps the states put up their sports edifices up to standard. You have to update because I'm not going to run on a already worn out tartan track. I'm not going to do that. So Nigeria will not have her best athletes running on a track that is not up to the standard. So it helps in the development of the state, and also it helps in solving this unemployment problem that Nigeria has always had. My whole life, Nigeria has always had unemployment problems. So if we actually pay attention to sports for what it is, then it will help curb unemployment in the nation.
Okay, so let's talk about the investment in sports. What are some of those structural policies that you think needs to be looked at in a way, revisited, changed in order to help the sports sector grow as well attract foreign investments?
Okay, investments, I believe that whenever we talk about investments, the first thing you think about is the security of your investments. No
Absolutely.
investor wants to invest in something that
Will crash.
he's not certain if it would be
Stand the
stable.
test of
Yes.
time,
So
exactly.
I will still give an example with the Nigerian Premier Football League, the NPFL. Some years back, I think that was in 2020, the whole world was on siege because of COVID, right? So some nations didn't finish their league. Nigeria did not finish. But fast forward, 2021, the NPFL kicked off. It had these issues of, not being in line with the calendar of the CAF calendar, that's the Confederation of African Football. And at the end of the season, Nigeria is supposed to present her champion, present the team that has come second, the winners of the Federation Cup, because they are going to participate at the continental level for the competition at the continental level. That's the CAF Champions League and the CAF Confederations Cup. But then Nigeria were running out of time. Our league was not done yet, but CAF needs us to give them who the champions are. So one thing led to another thing. The team that was on the top of the table at that point in time were declared winners. And then other teams got angry, said, you know what, we're not playing again. The season is not over, but you already
Have
declared
a
one
winner.
person winner. So, it caused a whole lot of problems. And,
Because this thing could actually be changed with one game.
yes, definitely. So you look at those kind of situations and you ask yourself, okay, if an investor had put in his money here and he sees this kind of things going on, he would definitely want to pull out his investment and he would advise his friends not to invest. But I would also give the NPFL its credit because in the last 2 seasons, it has been stable and it has maintained a very high standard.
Okay, so let's talk about the educational system in Nigeria. How can they really integrate sports into the curriculum? Apart from having, yes, apart from having students play football at their recreational time or whichever time it is, how can they really incorporate this into the curriculum?
When we're talking about fishing talents, I mentioned that we need to go back to school sports.
Oh,
Yes, we need to go back to school sports. School sports produce the best sports personalities in Nigeria.
not just at the tertiary level, but even at the primary
At
level.
the tertiary level, it's already late. Sports is something for the young people. If you go to the United States of America, where it is basketball and the American football,
The American football.
that's the trend there. They start from when they are in their what they call their own sort of
Crutch.
their own sort of primary school. If you read their history, you hear that so person started playing basketball at the age of 6. At the age of 6, in the UK, where football dominates, at the age of 6, they enroll their kids into academy. They go to school, probably in the morning. I don't know how they incorporate it, but they go to school, and then when the time for school is over, they go for their practices. And then at the age of 18, you sign your first professional contract. Some people are so unique that they even get to play before 18, but you have to sign your first professional contract the moment you become an adult. So the thing is, there's a very popular young man right now, Lamine Yamal. He started playing at 16, at 15 actually. He won the Euros at 16.
At a very young age.
He's not even 18 years
Yet.
but he's been tipped to be the best footballer in the world right now. He's 17. How many 17-year-olds do we
And this
see
is not
play?
just a football age.
No, I don't know. I can't argue for him. I'm not his
Okay.
dad. I'm not his mom. But if you look at him and you've actually followed. From me, I'm a sports journalist and I've actually followed his progress from when he was 14 or thereabout. He was at La Masia. I think if you look at him 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you would know that this boy is actually a kid.
A really
but one
young
thing
boy.
with kids, there's a way they grow. Once they want to
Rapidly.
they mature immediately.
Exactly.
So, you look at all of these things. We need to go back to school sports. Let the children participate in inter-house games. Let there be inter-school competitions organized by schools. In fact, I feel like any school that does not have sporting facilities should not be let, they shouldn't be allowed they shouldn't be allowed to, take kids to school, the class, teach them, and then
And they just
dismiss them.
sit in
That's
class
all.
all day, having
I
no
mean, you're
extra.
making these kids dull.
Exactly, that's true. Speaking of making the kids tall, then when I was younger, I would see kids of my age
Yeah.
sneak out of their houses so that they could play football in the streets. And now you have kids are glued to the screen.
Yeah.
You see, most of these kids don't want to be out there. They want to stay on their tablet. They want to watch TV all day. And it is really, really, making us not discover these talents that we really sought for.
I think that one is actually a societal problem. It's, the world has revolutionized, and, at this point, social media is everything. So, every kid at home now has a tablet that they play with. While I was growing up, I grew up in a village. While growing up, what I do when I come back from school is I play with my friends. Immediately I drop my phone.
It's on your. That's the first thing on your mind.
That's the first thing on my mind, because I come home and I'm already thinking about, okay, where are we going to play today?
And not forgetting that you just played at school.
Yes, definitely I played in school, but sometimes maybe not to my
Satisfaction.
Yeah, so I want to complete it when I get home. But kids of nowadays do no longer have such luxury, so you don't blame them actually. So I think the bulk of the job falls on the parents. You have to make your kids understand that they need to do these things. I will always give my secondary school some credit. We were forced to do sports.
Interesting.
You must do sports.
Do sports.
Yeah. 5 p.m. every evening, you must go out for sports. If you don't go out, it's a big problem.
Okay, so while Nigeria has actually produced exceptional athletes, we can't deny the fact the country has struggled to perform consistently at international games, if you agree with me.
Yeah, I do agree.
So what do you perceive as the primary barriers to actually compete with these international bodies?
Because we do not have a structure. We don't have a standing structure. We are relying on talent rather than structure. Talent can save you, but structure will keep you running for the longest time. So I think it's a very simple answer. Nigeria has no structure. We're always looking out for the already made talents. We are not looking out for the.
We don't want to discover it.
Discover the talents and breed them, and then put them in line to know exactly what they want to do and what they have to do. We're waiting for one player to be born in the UK, and then he's playing in the UK. Probably that player has waited for England to call him up, and then England doesn't call him up, and then Nigeria will be like, oh, you know what, come and play for us. A classic case is when Nigeria called up Shola Amobi to come play for us at the age of 29. Shola Amobi went to I think it was the FIFA Confederation Cup in 2014, and within 1 year, nobody saw Shola Amobi again. Shola Amobi obviously wanted to play for England. But then after so many years of it being ignored, he finally chose Nigeria. So we need to pick our talents from a very young age, put them through the structure. But first of all, we need to build
have a standing structure.
Yes.
So what are ministries, like the Ministry of Youth and Sport Development, what are they really doing about this standing structure?
I don't know. I really wish I could tell what they're doing. That's if I were working in the ministries, but I don't know. But
I mean, being a sports journalist and a football referee,
I've actually done my, I've done my due diligence. I've made my researches. I would say they've spoken a lot, but they've not done a lot. They've spoken of plans, and as much as I would sit down to criticize the sports ministry, which no longer exists, still the sports commission, I would also give them some credits.
Okay, we've talked about catching them young, having a structure, and the rest of it. What about the financial aspect of it? Is that not like a big deal in this?
Financial. Have you ever heard someone say, "Football money be like blood money"?
Exactly, I've heard it before.
There is a lot of money in sports.
So how are we not mining this thing?
Because we're not investing in it. For you to get money out of it, you need to invest. Whatever thing you're doing in life, you need to invest to get something out of it. I wanted to mention earlier that when you're talking about structure, I can hold Rangers International of Enugu right now and say they have a structure. It might not be churning out the results yet, but if you go close to the club and you look deep into the club, you see the structure, and you know that if you're someone that has foresight, you would know that in the next 5 years, Rangers would definitely be the best run club. In fact, I could even say they are the best run club in the MPFL right now, but probably the results are not coming in.
Okay.
Now, just a few months ago, they sold a player to Albania, Kazim Ogunleye. Now, there is something attached. There is a clause attached to the sale. I think he was sold for about I can't, let me not call figures
that you're not sure of.
Yes, that I'm not so sure of the figures. But in the contract that he signed, the Rangers International signed with the Albanian club, Partizani, FC Partizani in Albania. They have a 20% sell-on clause. So if in the future, because the guy is a very young player, if in the future the guy goes to Real Madrid, Manchester United, and he's signed for 20 million, Rangers is getting 20% of that 20 million.
Interesting.
That's structure.
So along the line, you still have money coming into the system.
But this is a player that left you about 5 years ago.
But you're still having benefits of
Exactly.
being the one to discover this talent.
Exactly. That's structure, and that's how to make money. So football money, sports money revolves around the world. It's not static.
Okay, apart from football, how well are we doing in other sports?
Not so well. The truth is that even the football, we're not doing so well. We're about missing out from the World Cup for the second time in a row. I think it will only take miracle for us to be at the World Cup 2026, and that's a very huge hammer on Nigerian sports. Now, let's talk about athletics. The Nigerian relay team were supposed to be in China last weekend for the Chinese relay championship. But then Nigeria opted out after the Nigerian athletes were denied visa into China. Reason being that China were celebrating their World Labor Day, and they don't work that day, so they couldn't approve the passports of the visas of the athletes. And then China and America has an underlying issue
going
China,
on. Yes,
most
the trade war.
Yes, most of the Nigerian athletes are based in America, so they were not approved. You're asking yourself, okay, Nigerians traveling to China, all traveling from America. What does it mean? They're not traveling with their Nigerian passports?
Of course they are.
Does it mean they're not?
Are they not identified as Nigerians? That's
the thing. And then, does it also mean that the Athletic Federation of Nigeria had to wait until the day of the labor
before they could
submit
they needed?
The bid? So the question is, how good are you doing? Now there is this lady, Favor Ofili, at the Olympics. Mysteriously, her name was skipped from the team that the
mysteriously.
Athletes yes, mysteriously, because till today no one has come out to give an explanation
of how it happened,
why she missed out on the 200 meters sprint at the Olympics. That's the biggest sporting stage in the world. Imagine when you have worked out your socks to get to the highest level, and then the federation fails to register your name.
Okay, so we are running short of time. Okay. What policies, in a nutshell, what policies do you think should be implemented in order to ensure equal access of to sports facilities and opportunities, not just the facilities, but also the opportunities that comes with all of it, including girls, irrespective of gender?
Yeah. I'm actually very particular about girls,
and not just on football, obviously.
Yeah, girls generally in sports, but actually I think I'm proud of the Nigerian ladies. They are actually doing great in sports. The ladies are actually coming out to do sports, and I'm so proud of how the parents are letting their kids explore their talents. But talking about policies, I think it would best suit Nigeria if sports is privatized.
Okay.
When an individual is running a business, he knows exactly what he wants.
Sees the future of the business.
And again, it also offers you stability. One thing that government doesn't offer you stability. It offers the longevity, but not the stability.
The stability.
Because one government goes, the
another
next
one
government
comes
that comes
in
might not be interested.
in the previous
Yes, they might not be interested in sports the way the previous government. Let's assume the previous government was really
interested in
so
sports.
we have to privatize most of our sports. But even if we cannot privatize them, if we can still leave them to the government ownership, but it should be run by individuals who are sports enthusiasts, not politicians.
Interesting. Thank you so much for your input on the subject matters, your youth and sport development in Nigeria. We had this conversation with a football referee and sports journalist, interestingly. His name is Kelechi NNAJI. Thank you so much, Kelechi.
Thank you very much.
Save Nature TV. News in your pocket.